Hey guys, welcome to my second half of August wrap up. I did a video mid-month sharing my reads from the first half of the month. Here's my second half of the month. Just a little disclaimer, there might be like traffic noise. I don't know what's all gonna get picked up. Tolkien was sitting in the window and I didn't have the heart to close it and kick him out. So that's gonna be going on. If he leaves, I'll close the window. So my second half of the reading month was pretty much like solid 4 stars all the way through, which is nothing to complain about. Nothing super spectacular, but the first half of the month had some definitely spectacular books. So if you haven't checked out that video, do that. Once again, I filmed little clips throughout the second half of the month. Welcome to update number 1. I have 2 books to share with you this time. First of all, I finished This Beautiful Truth by Sarah Clarkson. How God's Goodness Breaks into Our Darkness. This one I think I started back in May and I put off for a few months and then I picked it up a couple weeks ago and finished it. Sarah Clarkson's writing, like I love Sally Clarkson, her mother's writing. Sarah's has always been a little bit harder for me to read. They wrote The Life-Giving Table together. I love Sally's chapters. Sarah's have always felt more academic and wordy to me. I've always struggled with them a little bit more. This book, it was both a struggle and a complete delight at the same time. I did struggle with some of her writing. She is very academic. She makes me want to be more academic. I think that's a good thing. This is a lot about her struggle with mental illness, depression, OCD, very hard, heavy stuff, and it's been a hard, heavy few months too, so this was like both the perfect time to read it and a hard time, and she talks a lot about finding the beauty in those struggles, and there's a lot I loved. There's definitely some quotes I'm going to be adding to my commonplace book. There was just an overall vibe, like she talks a lot about walking the English countryside and like that just being so healing, and there's a lot I really enjoyed. There was times where I was like, I'm never gonna finish this book, and then the next chapter I would just fly through because I devoured it so much. So I don't even know what I gave it on Goodreads, 4 or 5 probably. Like I think it's, depending on the moment, it was wavering. I would be curious if anyone else has read this book or her other writing. Some of hers are like book ones, which are just much lighter. What do you guys think? Because I enjoy it, but also struggle. Oh, also my eye just started twitching, so if that comes through, I'm not trying to wink at you. I have found Joy Clarkson's writing to be much more easier to read, I guess. Other than, I guess her last book, You Are a Tree, was a little bit more similar to this, but Aggressively Happy was really easy. So I'm going to continue to read all of the Clarkson ladies' writings, but they're smarter than me, and I admit it, and they push me to want to be smarter. The other book is an ebook. I finished The Time Door, so I'm reading that for my trying to read ebooks video, which should already be out. This is by Shannon McDermott, I think. And so it is a science fiction book. It is coming out possibly October 8th, November, whatever the date I put up there. It's a science fiction story that really reminds me of The Martian, Project Hail Mary, and Recorder. So if you've liked any of those books, I think you'll really enjoy this one. We have kind of 2 different points of view that we're flipping back and forth from. The first one, we've got 4 people on Mars, and they find out right at the beginning of the book that they are going to be stuck there for a while. They've been there for 4 years. For various reasons, it's going to be a bit longer. And so that was very interesting because that reminded me a lot of The Martian. And then on Earth here, we are with a couple of people that are involved in this Mars mission. We find out like why it's going to take a while, what else is going on. There's a lot of like politics kind of going on in the background, which normally if you say the word politics or political, I'm out. And it took me a while to like understand what was all going on, but I really got into that part of it throughout the book. So if that is an anti-buzzword for you, don't be completely turned off by it, because it is for me generally as well, but there are some times when it can work. And so we follow this Mars team as they try to figure out what to do with their time. I don't want to give spoilers. There's so much other stuff that goes on that is really good, but I feel like it would be spoilery. So if you like science fiction, check it out. If you've enjoyed The Martian, what did I say? Project Hail Mary or Recorder. I think you'll enjoy it. My only like downside to it is the fact that there wasn't any humor. We were with these people on Mars, possibly dying before any help arrives, and I really wanted some humor to alleviate some of the intenseness. So if I had a con for the book, that's what it would be, but otherwise I thoroughly enjoyed it. Only problem is it left pretty cliffhangery, as a duology should, honestly. But this book isn't even out yet, and I have to wait for the second book before I can finish the story, but that's okay. I did it to myself. So those are my 2 reads thus far. Okay, update number 2, 3 more books. The first one is an ebook. The second ebook that I was reading in my reading only ebooks, trying to level Kindle, trying to figure out what I'm doing e-reading wise video, and that is Mrs. Smith's Suspects. I'm honestly still not sure if the title, eating my hair, if the title is Mrs. Smith's Suspects or if the title is Claude, Gord, Alice and Maud or whatever it was. But either way, that book. I will leave it linked below. So this is kind of a cozy mystery locked room story where all your suspects are all together. This one was recommended to me by Holly. She read it last month or the beginning of this month. I don't remember when. And she thought I would like it because it mentions Thursday Murder Club right off the bat. So our main character is this elderly lady named Mrs. Smith, Mrs. Sally Smith. And while she's at the hairdresser one day, she goes to the bathroom in the middle of her hair stuff. And in the cupboard, which I think is like where they mix the dyes and stuff, she smelt this funky smell and she went in and prodded it with her cane and then went to tell her hairdresser about it. So the thing is, Mrs. Smith is mostly blind. And it turns out that it wasn't dirty towels like she thought it was a dead body. And so we sit with Mrs. Smith in the hairdresser for the rest of the day while the police come and try to figure things out, and she tries to be nosy and get all this information from people and figure out the mystery on her own. There was a lot I really enjoyed with the story. I gave it 4 stars, so overall really enjoyed it. Our suspects are all there in the salon. I was not 100% sure where it was gonna go, and I had a lot of fun with it. Normally I struggle when a character is blind or has vision issues because I feel like they can't describe the scene or the setting well enough for me to then visualize it. But because Mrs. Smith is very observant and she used to have her eyesight and she knew some of these people from back when she could see, she was really good at describing things, and that didn't give me a hang up like it can in other books or has in other books. So I overall really enjoyed it. I think it's maybe going to become a series. I don't think it is one at this point, but I would be curious to continue it. It was on Kindle Unlimited, so, and I have like a 3-month trial for 99 cents. So totally worth it. I will keep an eye out, see if more come in that series. Then I finished Hind's Feet on High Places. It's kind of bright here now with the sun. I sat in on 2 out of 3 of Krista's lives for this. I couldn't join in on the last one because we had a potluck for pastors and church planters and stuff like that. So this is an allegory. We follow Much Afraid, who is very much afraid of everything. And she gets told by the shepherd that, or asked by the shepherd to go on this journey to the high places. I still need to watch Krista's The Final Live. That was just yesterday, so I haven't watched the replay yet. But I'm a little bit confused as to what the allegory is. Comparing this to Pilgrim's Progress, I enjoyed Pilgrim's Progress a lot better, even though this is more modern and easier to read. Whereas like Christian becomes a Christian, we walk with him through his Christian life and he makes it to heaven. Like, I understand that. I'm personally confused, much afraid, goes on this journey. I don't know what this journey is representative of, because once she gets to the high places, she goes back to the valley to help people out. So I don't think it's like, I almost think it was her journey to become a Christian. And then once she was a Christian, she went back to her hometown to help people. I don't know. I felt like it was a little bit less cut and dry. It was a little bit more confusing. Lots of things I did like. I highlighted a bunch of things. So a lot I liked. A little bit that I was just confused about. So if you read the book, definitely check out Krista's lives and hear our conversation. The lives made it better. I'll say that. Keeps getting brighter and brighter. It made me read it more detailed, and it made me other people caught on to other things than what I did, so it made me catch more. Had I read this just on my own, I probably would, the highest I would have given it would be 3 stars. So definitely reading with people helped. And the final book I have to share right now is Death Comes as the End. This was my Agatha Christie for the month, so I did a whole video once again on Patreon sharing my thoughts as I went. This one is very different for Agatha Christie. This one is set in 2000 BC in Egypt. So going into it, I thought I wasn't gonna love it because not my favorite setting. And honestly, if you would have taken this story and put it in England, that would have bumped it up an entire star for me, I'm sure of it. But what I didn't realize is that this would be a little bit of a locked room type mystery. Not completely, but all our suspects are there and people are getting knocked off one by one, like in Her And Then There Were None story. I think if she would have set this somewhere else in a different time period, it would have done better, but maybe that's what And Then There Was None is. So in this one, we follow a woman who was married to her husband for 8 years, and then he died, so she goes back to her father's family, like her birth family, and she's talking to a guy right at the beginning, one of the servants of the family, and says like, oh, nothing has changed in 8 years. People are still fighting the same way and acting the same way as they always have. And he's like, are you sure? There's a little bit of evil underneath, kind of like hinting at stuff. And then her father comes home from a trip with a concubine who's like 19 years old, and things fairly quickly go downhill. Once again, I tried to solve this as I went. I was all over the place. The grandmother in here is hilarious. I started reading this on a live and said I needed a family tree because I was very confused at the beginning. Once I got that figured out, it was good. And the grandmother, she was spunky. There were so many deaths going on in the family that at one point she joked, and like this is quite morbid, but like, I don't know, when things come from an old lady, it's like they're funnier. She was talking about the embalmers, and she said they should give us a cut rate price for quantity. I don't know. I shouldn't like that kind of humor, but old ladies and their humor, that cracks me up. So yeah, it's been a good reading stint here. I feel like I'm really enjoying the books that I'm reading. And now I have a few books to share. It's kind of less than it looks. I had When Among Crows out from the library by Veronica Roth. It needed to go back to the library, so I thought I would try it since it's super short. And I DNF'd it very early on. It felt really dark and I wasn't interested. If it has good ratings, if people convince me I need to give it another try, maybe I'll get it out from the library again at some point and try it again. But at this point, I don't feel like it's worth it. Okay, I gotta close that window. It's too loud for me. Tolkien's not gonna be impressed. He's probably gonna try to leave right away. And then I had to reread Wildflower Pages. This is a beautiful collection of poetry. This was my reread so that I could black out Tiffany's summer book bingo. Like seriously, I don't know if you can see, some of these poems are incredibly short. It's kind of too bright. Yeah, just a couple lines long. And there are some watercolor illustrations throughout as well. But I really did enjoy this the first time I read it, enjoyed it again this time. It's very short but sweet little read. Okay, now for books I actually finished. Now he's decided to sit in a different spot. I read The Marlowe Murder Club. I'm pretty sure Stacy from Wandering with Stacy mentioned this a while ago, and that's why I picked it up, because our main character is an older woman that solves a murder. So we've got 77-year-old Judith Potts. She's kind of like, she lives in a very expensive house because it was passed on to her by her great aunt. And now he found a toy that he's trying to play with that I actually need to sew. He always just tries to take over my videos. Okay, whatever. But she's kind of like a recluse. She creates crosswords. Is anyone going to be able to concentrate if he's playing with that? But right at the beginning of the book, she is going for a swim and ends up finding out that her neighbor has been murdered. And so she sets out to try to solve the murder. And as she goes, she kind of meets some other ladies in the town and they band together to try to solve this murder. It was pretty good. I enjoyed quite a bit about it. Some of the characters rubbed me the wrong way a little bit, but there was a lot of funny moments that made up for it. Like the first time she comes across one of these ladies, she's in the church and she finds a woman in the cupboard and she says, "You're the vicar's wife?" "I'm afraid so. Someone has to be. Do you mind if I get out of the cupboard?" "No, please do." Like it's an everyday occurrence to find someone in a cupboard. So overall, it was a fun mystery. Quite short too. It was 270 pages. It felt shorter than that. Quite enjoyable. I also finished Rosefire. This is a fantasy story where right off the bat, this young woman kind of comes out of this rainstorm to this house and she ends up fulfilling a prophecy, and the people of the house slowly find out that like this has fulfilled this prophecy, and so they are trying to keep this kind of on the down low. The same night that this woman arrived on their doorstep, the crown prince, I think he was, died, and so the kingdom is in turmoil because the king is really old, doesn't have any other sons, and so it's kind of up in the air as to who's going to inherit the crown. There's like some political stuff going on, but like not overly political because that can be an anti-buzzword for me. Overall, I enjoyed this story. And then I finished The Testimony of Bendigo Fletcher. This is, we come across this world, I think it was like 400 years before. There was some kind of, something happened and the afterlife was stolen from the people of the land. So now when you die, it's just nothingness. And something happens at the beginning of the book that our main character is kind of called to go on this mission to take back the afterlife, really. And so he kind of gets a few people as he goes through the lands, collects them to help him with this fight that he has to do. And there's some good themes in here of faith and love casting out fear. There's a lot that I enjoyed as well. And that's really all I have to say about that. So overall, the last half of the month, I had one DNF, but the rest of these, I'll give 4 stars. There was the one ebook that I read, I gave 5 stars on Goodreads, but it's like 4.5. So not a bad reading second half of the month at all. I would love to hear if you guys read some great books, some 4 stars. What are some of the books you're kind of excited to share about? Let me know how your August reading month went.